Before we get started, can I just say how excited I am for the dungeon crawl content? Good single player material is what allows me to avoid engaging with other people. You'll never get me, Nemsy! I'll never leave my home for a card game! Greetings, well met, and welcome to Hearthstone Theory. Here we examine the mathematics, probability, and other aspects of particular Hearthstone cards to judge, as well as possible, how good they are and will be. So, with my first episode down, and Cthulhu successfully outed for the trash that he is, it's time to look to the horizon and make bolder predictions about the future. Now, what was announced the same day as I released my first video? Oh, I really should have been keeping a closer eye on the announcement schedule. This, kinda snuck up on me. But no matter! With this new content comes new cards, and with new cards comes new interactions. And with my formula in hand, it's time to examine the new mechanics that have been shown off with these new cards. 4 different mechanics appear to exist. The Recruit keyword, which pulls a random minion from your deck. Spellstones, which upgrade themselves when a condition is fulfilled while the cards are in your hand. Unidentified cards, which gain extra effect when drawn. And zero attack weapons. Trust me, I would love to claim that there's more to it for that last one, but that's it. Zero attack weapons. They're a thing now. So, how do each of these effects alter the results of my analysis, and how do these new cards hold up in my system? Let's find out. Let's start with the Recruit mechanic. Thankfully, we've already seen an effect like this one with Y'Shaarj, which, side note, is one of my favorite cards. Look at that polarization. C++. Back on track, the Recruit effect is exactly like what we see with Y'Shaarj. It's power and tempo, since that's what a minion will get you. You can build a deck to ensure that the power and tempo, and maybe even aggression, are maximized, but flexibility is not a factor with it unless the minion itself has flexibility. So, in general, Recruit cards will have high but variable power and tempo, and low aggression and flexibility. You can expect this effect to generally be good in Arena, since tempo is a key factor in Arena. Gather Your Party doesn't fit this mold, however, since it takes from your entire deck and is incredibly variable because of it. C-, might make a warrior deck with large minions and basically nothing else. Guild Recruiter shows off the Arena potential much more significantly, with high potential power and tempo. D+. Moving on, Spellstones. A Spellstone is a simple concept. Keep it in your hand, it gets stronger. Mechanically, this can be viewed as the first card being destroyed and replaced with the better, stronger card. At first glance, this setup creates what I like to call a wild card, where most attributes are variable to a fault. What matters here is the flexibility, where high flexibility promotes synergy and low promotes random results. In either case, they will have a lower ranking in Arena overall. However, a weakness of the Spellstones is that they are required to be in your hands to gain greater strength. This limits the flexibility of your deck, as you have less to work with in your hand while your Spellstone is powering up. This won't assist the cards in their ranking. Looking at the cards. Lesser Sapphire Spellstone has potentially great power, but its high cost cripples its aggression and flexibility. The overload requirement doesn't help either, bringing down the card's tempo and flexibility. D-flat. In Arena, the same story will exist. Lesser Jasper Spellstone provides anti-tempo as its main form of power, and its lower power rating isn't even poor. However, it, like every other Spellstone, suffers in terms of flexibility thanks to having to be held in hand. A 1-cost card is usually best with aggression and some tempo, and this card doesn't follow that trend. Regardless, the power output is impressive enough that I'll give this card a B-. It's good. It's just not fantastic. Alright, onwards. Unidentified cards. These cards transform into different cards each game, each with a slightly altered effect. This creates lots of variation, but not to the extent of our Spellstones, and with even less flexibility. Flexibility depends on how reliable your plans can come together. Randomness does not assist this value. For the unidentified elixir, the analysis is complicated, since 4 different cards need to be analyzed and averaged. Suffice to say that the effect is underwhelming enough in each case that I am skeptical of its use in Constructed. Its tempo is strong enough to give it a C, though it's worth noting for Constructed that this card doesn't synergize too well with Priest. Not yet, anyways. And finally, the most important of them all, the legendary weapons. Now, I'm pretty sure different classes will have weapons that possess attack values, but for now, I'm examining the idea of these 0-3 weapon cards. These cards are as good as a permanent effect for the rest of the game, barring tech card counters like Acidic Swamp Ooze. Actually, while we're talking about it, for rating these cards, tech cards don't matter. Tech cards are their own special breed of card that gain power based on the power of other cards. While useful for keeping the meta stabilized, it doesn't alter the strength of the rated cards. I can go into more detail on this in another episode, but for now accept that they have next to no sway in the judgments of these cards. Anyways, with that in mind, a 0-3 weapon can be viewed simply as a permanent effect, rather than as a weapon. Permanent effects reward ever-increasing power, as well as logarithmic aggression, tempo, and flexibility. Of course, the down cost of placing the card might inhibit these values, because of the delay in execution of the effect. With these factors in mind, let's start looking at Dragon Soul. The low cost allows for decent flexibility, but its effect is a conditional case that limits the aggression and tempo expected values. Still, 5/5 dragons are good, and it's actually not infeasible to play this on one turn, then summon multiple dragons the next turn. Thank you, Lyra. You complete my decks. Love. The aggression and tempo are both pretty healthy, and the flexibility isn't too bad, so all things considered, B-. This card will be considerably worse in Arena because the odds of getting anything out of it are just slim. And even if you do manage to get one or two, it's not going to be worth it. Now, moving on. Alunith. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. A lot simpler to judge since its effect is pure flexibility. Effectively, once you play this card, you draw 4 cards per turn instead of 1. Turns out 3 + 1 is 4, which can very quickly pay for the 6 mana and 1 card cost of playing this. This gives the logarithmic increase that we expect. However, over time, this rise ceases, and instead is converted into negative aggression. Incredibly strong and infinite negative aggression. Fatigue damage, in case that wasn't clear. When you draw too many cards, you take damage, and that gives your opponent aggression. This puts Alunith in an interesting spot. It needs to be in a deck that needs flexibility, but can create enough aggression to avoid this mess. I suppose that's feasible? Agromage, maybe? I'll give it a C. It's interesting to examine the start of a new set. New effects and cards that I never could have imagined at my fingertips. When I first thought up my rating system, I never dreamed that I would create a diagram that looked like this. And that's why I love Hearthstone. It gives me new and creative ways to think about this game, my formula, and how they interact. But it always has that familiarity that I can describe in 4 values. Power, aggression, tempo, flexibility. What's high, what's low, and what's just right. Thank you for watching this episode of Hearthstone Theory. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I've enjoyed making it. If you would like to see more, leave a like to show that this is good, leave a comment to make a request for a future video, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss it. Until then, remember, light smiles upon the jest.